Hey there, history buffs! Today we're diving headfirst into the fascinating world of decolonization. Imagine rolling back the clock to the mid-20th century, a period buzzing with anticipation as the curtains were closing on centuries of European empires. The winds of change were sweeping across continents, dismantling old power structures and giving birth to newly independent nations. Decolonization was a monumental shift on the global stage. It was driven by the resilient spirit of those who dared to dream of a world free from foreign domination. It was a time of determination, hope, and a whole lot of revolutionary fervor. The once mighty European empires were shrinking. Countries like India, Pakistan, and countless African nations were stepping out of the shadows of their colonizers. They were reclaiming their identities and beginning a new chapter as independent nations. But this journey wasn't a leisurely stroll in a park. People took to the streets, protested, and fought against the shackles of colonial rule. Their unwavering resolve shook the foundations of empires and demonstrated the power of unity and perseverance. The world witnessed one of the largest non-violent movements ever, led by the indomitable Mahatma Gandhi. Yet, decolonization was more than just breaking chains and hoisting new flags. It was a complex process that shaped nations, cultures, and economies in profound ways. It carved out new identities, redefined political boundaries, and set the course for future generations. The euphoria of becoming an independent nation was palpable. Flags soared high, anthems echoed through the streets, and dreams of a better future began to take root. From Africa to Asia, from the Caribbean to the Pacific Islands, the wave of transformation was unstoppable. Fast forward to today, the legacy of decolonization is still very much alive. It continues to shape global politics and societies, influencing conversations about identity, self-determination, and the ripple effects of colonization. As the great Nelson Mandela once said, "To be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others." Decolonization was a game-changer, my friends. Europe's once mighty empires were facing some serious shrinkage here. The mid-20th century was a time of seismic shifts in the global landscape, as the sun began to set on the British Empire, the French Empire, the Dutch Empire, and others. These empires, which had dominated the world stage for centuries, were witnessing their territories dwindle, their power wane, and their influence recede. The political map of the world was being redrawn, as nations across Asia, Africa, and the Caribbean asserted their right to self-determination and sovereignty. Countries like India, Pakistan, Ghana, and Jamaica emerged from the shadows of colonial rule and took their first steps as independent nations. Their journey was marked by struggle, sacrifice, and an unyielding commitment to freedom and dignity. But it wasn't just about the changing borders and the birth of new nations. The process of decolonization was also about the end of an old world order and the dawn of a new era. It was about the decline of Eurocentric domination and the rise of a more multipolar world. It was about the redistribution of global power, as the United States and the Soviet Union moved into the vacuum left by the retreating European empires. Decolonization was, without a doubt, a transformative process. It marked the end of an era of exploitation and subjugation, and the beginning of a journey towards self-determination and independence. But this journey was not without its challenges. The path to freedom was often marred by conflict, violence, and instability. The struggle for independence was a hard-fought battle, as colonial powers were often reluctant to relinquish their control. The birth of these new nations was a momentous event, a testament to the human spirit's resilience and the universal yearning for freedom. But the process of decolonization was also fraught with complexity and contradiction. It was a time of change and uncertainty, as newly independent nations grappled with the myriad challenges of nation-building. And let me tell you, it wasn't just a walk in the park. The process of decolonization was a tumultuous journey, marked by struggle and sacrifice. But it was also a journey towards freedom, dignity, and self-determination. A journey that changed the world forever. People took to the streets, protested, and fought against the shackles of imperial rule. This was an era of courage, an era of audacity, where ordinary individuals rose to become extraordinary leaders of their people. They were the freedom fighters, the torchbearers of change who dared to challenge the might of empires. Think of the charismatic Kwame Nkrumah, who led Ghana to independence, or the fearless Patrice Lumumba, who fought for Congo's sovereignty. They were men of vision, who ignited the fires of freedom in the hearts of their people. Then there was the dynamic duo of Jomo Kenyatta and Julius Nyerere, who championed the cause of independence in Kenya and Tanzania respectively. Their leadership was instrumental in transforming their nations from colonial territories to sovereign states. And how can we forget the indomitable Ho Chi Minh? His relentless struggle against French colonialism led to the birth of an independent Vietnam. His name became synonymous with resistance, inspiring countless others across Asia and beyond. But the freedom struggle was not just about armed resistance and political maneuvering. It was also about non-violent protests and civil disobedience. Across the Indian subcontinent, a man with a simple loincloth and a walking stick was stirring a revolution. Mahatma Gandhi, the apostle of peace, led one of the largest non-violent movements in history. His philosophy of satyagraha, or truth force, became a beacon of hope for millions. His unique approach to resistance through non-violence and passive defiance became a powerful tool against the British Raj. Gandhi's influence extended far beyond India's borders. His ideas inspired leaders worldwide, including Martin Luther King Jr. in his struggle for civil rights in the United States. So, let's not just remember these freedom fighters as mere figures in history textbooks. Let's remember them as the architects of change, the catalysts who transformed the landscape of the 20th century. Think about it. One of the largest non-violent movements ever, led by none other than the incredible Mahatma Gandhi himself. But it wasn't just about breaking chains and waving new flags. Decolonization was a seismic shift that went far beyond the mere transfer of power. It was a process that involved a dramatic reshaping of nations, cultures, and economies. Imagine this. You've been living under foreign rule for centuries. Suddenly, you're handed the reins. It's like being thrown into the deep end without a life jacket. The transition was tumultuous, to say the least. Newly independent nations had to grapple with the daunting task of nation building. They had to create new political structures, draft constitutions, establish economic systems, and navigate the tricky terrain of international diplomacy. And all this while trying to heal the deep wounds inflicted by centuries of exploitation and oppression. The economic consequences were particularly challenging. Many of these nations were left with economies that were heavily dependent on their former colonizers. Transitioning to self-sustained economies was a Herculean task, and many continue to struggle with this even today. Culturally, decolonization ignited a renaissance of sorts. It was an opportunity to reclaim and redefine national identities. Traditional customs, languages, and practices that had been suppressed or marginalized under colonial rule were revived and celebrated. But this process was not without its tensions. Often the legacy of divide and rule policies left by the colonizers led to internal conflicts, as diverse ethnic and religious groups sought to assert their identities. Decolonization also had a profound impact on the global stage. It reshaped international relations, giving rise to new alliances and power dynamics. The United Nations saw a surge in membership as newly independent nations joined the international community. However, the scars of colonial rule run deep. Many of the challenges we see today, from ethnic conflicts to economic disparities, from questions of identity to struggles for resources, can be traced back to the complex aftermath of decolonization. Decolonization was a complex process that shaped nations, cultures, and economies in ways we are still grappling with today. So, why is decolonization still relevant today, you ask? It's because the echoes of this transformative era are still resounding, shaping the contours of our modern world. Decolonization, my friends, was not merely a historical event. It was a seismic shift that left an indelible mark on global politics and societies. It was a time when nations, once deemed mere colonies, stood up to reclaim their identities, determining their own destinies. Just think about it. The world map as we know it today, it's a result of that very process of decolonization. The nations that emerged from the ashes of European empires have since become critical players on the global stage. But the legacy of decolonization extends beyond political borders. It permeates every fabric of our society. From the languages we speak to the cultures we celebrate, from the economic systems we navigate to the social issues we grapple with, the ripples of decolonization are everywhere. This era of transformation ignited conversations about identity and self-determination that continue to resonate today. It made us question the power dynamics that exist between nations and peoples, and it forced us to confront the lasting impacts of colonization. And what about the economic landscape? Decolonization played a significant role in shaping that too. Many newly independent countries had to grapple with the challenge of economic development and nation building. they had to navigate the tricky waters of global trade, often in a world still dominated by their former colonizers. But perhaps the most poignant legacy of decolonization is the spirit of resilience it embodies. It's a testament to the indomitable spirit of humanity, to our ability to rise against oppression, to challenge the status quo, and to carve out a path towards freedom and self-determination. Decolonization taught us the importance of embracing diversity, respecting sovereignty, and learning from history. It reminds us that the struggle for freedom is a shared human experience, one that transcends borders and time. And it offers us a lens through which to view and understand our complex, interconnected world. So let's keep these lessons close to our hearts as we navigate the world of today and tomorrow. So, let's raise a virtual glass to those fearless freedom fighters, the architects of decolonization who dared to challenge the status quo, who shook off the shackles of oppression and ignited the flame of freedom. Their legacy? A world sculpted by their courage, their resilience, and their indomitable spirit. We owe them our understanding, our respect, and our commitment to remember this monumental chapter in our shared history. So to the heroes of decolonization, we say, cheers to decolonization.